Welcome to tonight's webinar, Foundations of Hebrew Grammar Part 3. What we want to do is talk about what the purpose of this webinar, because I really want to set expectations right to make sure this is going to meet your needs. So first, we're going to provide training for Logos Bible software. You're going to learn how to use the original language tools better by coming to this webinar. We're going to provide training so that you'll be able to take this and study it for yourself. And along the way, we're going to be providing biblical insights relating to whatever passage we're studying. And then I'll provide materials so you can equip yourself and others. Now, tonight, the Foundation series is a little bit different than our traditional webinars. And so I've got some other things to share with you. First and foremost, I can't replace seminary. When you consider the years that these men who teach the languages and the women and the knowledge they have and the way they have spent their lives dedicated to teaching this, those are the people who know a lot more than I do. But with that, doesn't mean you can't get a lot out of this presentation, and there certainly will be. Second, we're going to shorten the lessons due to the technical nature of the material. This is intense stuff. So instead of being not only intense and long-winded, which I don't want to do, we're going to try to keep it brief, try to keep it to about an hour, because believe me, that is enough time to cover a lot of material. Also, if you're wondering if this is appropriate for you, this is going to be a good review for those who may be rusty, who've had former Hebrew training. So this will be a good review. The primary audience that I'm targeting is those who have someone with little or no Hebrew training. Now, if you are in seminary, this is going to benefit you big time too. But if you're not in seminary or have no intentions, that's going to be great, because that's exactly the kind of mindset I'm going after here, who says, hey, I want to learn how to use the Hebrew. I don't have the time or the resources or opportunity to go to schooling, but help me get more out of the Hebrew. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And like I said, this is great for anyone who wants to use more of the original language tools. We're going to take a step-by-step approach with biblical examples. I'm a firm believer of not just teaching theory, but bringing that theory into practice, into reality with real examples. And I think that'll help all of us understand more clearly what's going on in the original language. The webinar will be recorded, available for download at $4.99. Also, if you haven't gotten my Logos 4 or Logos 5 training, take advantage of that, 50% off. It is the most comprehensive training on the planet, and it will cover some of these topics, but we're going to go in the webinar much more in depth. But if you're looking to use the tool better, you want to get the training, and you can do that at LearnLogos.com/buy now. Don't forget to visit LearnLogos.com/events for upcoming webinars, and we do have quite a few of those coming up, so get the whole year planned out. Our next webinar will be 2 weeks from today, so now we're going to start the cycle of every other week we're going to be doing webinars. So that gives you some time to take a break, allows me to get the webinars done, edit in time, and get prepared, because some of these webinars this year are a little more intense than normal. So we're going to need that extra time for prep. Don't forget, the time is running out on early bird registration for how to prepare a sermon with Logos. This is a 10-week 2-hour for each session workshop, and how to prepare a sermon, how to improve a sermon. If you go there, you'll get a detailed outline. This is unlike anything that you've ever been to or everything you've ever seen here at LearnLogos. This is equivalent to a semester's worth of training, but it's more than that. We're going to be bringing in preaching examples. We're going to be teaching how to use Logos. We're going to help you to improve the ability to study and prepare for a message, and so forth. So even if you're not preaching the word, and let's say you're a Sunday school teacher teaching the word, this is still going to be very valuable. Many pastors will pay thousands of dollars to go away for a weekend retreat, and there they'll just get a lot of information, and it's like drinking out of a fire hose. I want to avoid that kind of situation. I want to do this over a period of 10 weeks. Each week there's a specific lesson with homework, things that you can actually try out as you're teaching and preaching. So by the end of this session, these 10 sessions, you'll have implemented the training in a way that'll be effective. So very excited. If you have already bought the training bundle, or you have purchased the Preparing Sermons series, email me at john@LearnLogos.com, and I will send you a $50 discount for that. So it'll be even less. It'll be $250 for the training. So very excited. There'll be a syllabus. There'll be homework. There's lots of things involved. And the beautiful part is you can do this in your home or office. No travel required. So what's tonight's training topics? Well, we're doing the introduction right now. We're going to look at some recommended but not required resources. This is to make sure that you got the right books in your library to do this effectively. And then we're going to begin a kind of a step-by-step method for studying the Hebrew grammar. We're going to create a study layout. We're going to show you how to identify phrases so you can break down the text for easier study. We're going to show you how to get organized with those phrases. We're going to show you how to translate word by word. We're going to use grammars and commentaries. In fact, we're going to show you how to use and search these Hebrew grammars and use and search these exegetical commentaries. So there is a lot to cover here. Now, with this webinar, there will be, let me go ahead and open it up, a personal book included. So let me show you that right here. So here's the personal book with all the steps that we're going to be covering tonight. And I've spent quite a bit of time on the resources because I know how important it is that you've got the right kind of resources to do the work that you need to do here. So let's jump right into this and start off first with the big question, which is how do you even type Hebrew? It's one of the questions. And Logos has this tool at LearnLogos.com, Shibboleth. You might remember that from the Hebrew story where they tested the foreigner, and if they said the Shibboleth the wrong way, they got killed. If they said it the right way, they were free to pass. So what is Shibboleth? Well, it's a tool that allows you to type in different languages. Let me go ahead and open that up on my computer so you can see that. And this is a pretty neat little tool. Now, the thing to remember here is this is more useful for writing papers and things like that, but it at least allows you to see what the text looks like. For example, if I wanted to type a Hebrew word like Amer to speak, and there you go. You also have the ability to put in vowel points, as you can see here. You can put accents, and so if you're writing an academic paper or you need to get this information, let's say the copy and pasting doesn't work just the way you want it from the Logos Bible software, you can just open up here and then basically choose copy. So take advantage of that tool. Okay, the next thing is changing the Hebrew font size. This is so important. So let's go ahead and close this down and let's open up Logos, and I'm going to open up a resource. Now, if you go up to the command line and type in BHW, now let me turn this back to normal font size. When you're working with the Hebrew, first thing you're going to realize is there's a lot of small characters. You could easily have to change your prescription of your eyeglasses if you're spending too much time in the Hebrew text. So the first thing you want to do when you open this up is make the text large and easy to read. To do that, we just simply need to go over here to the book icon, click on it, and the menu becomes available, and we see the small a and the big A. So let's go ahead and drag that little bar, vertical scroll bar, over to the right. Now, I like to move to about 2 or 3 over to the right from the larger bar there. So if you really look at this as a line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in. And that's a good size to work with. It makes the fonts very easy to read. You can see all the vowel pointings, all the accents. Everything is just right there in front of you. So make sure you have it turned up loud, so to speak. So that takes care of changing the Hebrew font size. Now, I have created a rule here. Let's talk about collections and finding existing resources in your library. You may not realize, depending on the collection you bought, what kind of books that you have related to Hebrew. Having a collection is going to be very important. I see Nathan here has got a question. Do we need to worry about choosing a default Hebrew font at all, or just stick with the Logos defaults? Great question. So let me go there real quick. So I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Program Settings, Tools, Program Settings, and if you scroll down, you have the ability under Text Display to change the Hebrew font. And so I'm going to click on that. You'll see that there's Ezra, Sil, SR, and Hebrew. Unless you are in seminary or PhD program and they're requiring a particular font, just leave whatever is default. It's really not relevant. They all look the same, just slightly different. But if you are writing papers or you have to turn something into a theological society and they have font requirements, then it is important that you set it up properly. So be aware of that. So this is a very long, obnoxious rule. And so when you buy the webinar and get the personal book, you'll just be able to copy and paste. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that collection, Tools Collection. I'm going to go to Open. I'm just going to type Grammar Hebrew, and I recommend finding this format because we're going to do this on the Greek side. We're going to do Grammar Greek. the next webinar. So you notice I've included other related languages like Ugaritic, Akkadian, Hittite, Aramaic, and so forth, because sometimes they shed some insight into the Hebrew language. Sometimes they make comments about the biblical text, and that can be extremely helpful. A simple rule, if you want to just keep it simple, you could just simply type in type grammar, and we'll do title Hebrew. And that simple rule of type : grammar and title : Hebrew will find all the Hebrew grammars in your library. So I didn't want to overwhelm you with a huge rule. That'll be a benefit if you get the personal book. But here's a very simple rule you can use that will give you access to all the grammars in your library. We'll go through some of these and why you want to have some and why you might want to consider expanding your library. But that's a great rule to use. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put in my previous rule. Okay, so I'm going to close that down. Once you've done that, you should also be aware that Logos has this really cool feature. I'm going to go up to Library, and I'm going to click on, just to the right of the library, it says Entire Library. And I'm going to type in Hebrew. You'll notice that my Hebrew grammar collection shows up in the library list. So be aware that in the library, when you create a collection, you'll have access to that collection here. So it can make it easier to sort through the list and then find a particular book by a particular author. Now, the next thing we want to do is jump into these resources. Now, I've organized them in several ways. So let me open up the table of contents a little bit more. So you can, let's go ahead and open up that one. Okay, so this is the one that you guys have, the Weevu. It looks like this one does come with the vowel pointings and the accents. They're all there. So yeah, that would be a great one to use. Add that to my collection so I have that in there. I'm going to go ahead and link that up. So that'll be a good substitute. I'm glad you brought that up, Erwin. That's really helpful for the rest of the group. So that's the workspace you want to have. Now, the next thing you need to do after you link all the resources is you have to make sure that you have a certain feature turned on. So we're going to click on the 3 colored circles and click on sympathetic highlighting and do that for every resource. If you want to get into the syntax, we could open up the Anderson-Forbes syntax. I'm going to click on Library. I'm going to type in Anderson with an S-E-N, and what I'm looking for is the Anderson-Forbes phrase marker analysis. There it goes. You can always find it by the one that doesn't have a book cover. And let's go ahead and open up the Hebrew phrase marker analysis. Let me bring that into the window. Now, this resource is amazing, and I talk about this in my webinar number 4 for inductive Bible study, preparing sermons, and Bible study. And I give you 6 hours to train how to read this and use this. I cover it on my Logos 5 training DVD, my Logos 4 training DVD. It's all over the place, and we'll spend more down the road with this as well. But this book's extremely useful, but it's also extremely detailed. And in fact, when you turn everything on, you can see how much space this thing takes and how detailed it can get. So a resource like this, if you've got a second monitor, that will save you a lot of work. Because what I do when I use this is I put this up on a monitor all by itself, and I begin to read while I'm looking at my English and Hebrew Bibles. So be aware of that amazing resource. I'm going to go ahead and right-click on the tab, and I'm going to choose Dock this tab. So if you want to have that resource open, just list it there. And you notice I have it on the smallest font size as well to maximize the space. And then even sometimes I'll turn off like the lexem and the parts of speech and just leave it like that, just so I can see more of the information. So that'll be very, very helpful to have if you want to get into syntax. And then the last thing we want to open up is documents and sentence diagram, which we're going to use tonight. And let's go ahead and right-click on the tab and dock that as well. And I'm going to dock it right here with my Bible. So I've got my Hebrew on the right and Greek, Septuagint, and then I got my English on the left. In fact, let's go ahead and just drag the sentence diagramming below the English. Now we are ready to save our layouts. So I'm going to click on Layouts. I'm going to click on Save as Named Layouts, and we're going to type in Hebrew Study. And we're going to hit the white arrow in the blue circle, and we're going to save that. And we're going to drag that up to the top left and put it on our shortcut toolbar for now. And I don't like the look of that icon, so I'm going to right-click on the icon, and I'm just going to put in the Hebrew letter there, so that'll be real obvious for me. It's really important that you create this layout so you can return to it over and over and have all the resources linked up, ready to go. And then all you have to do is just change the passage. So with that now, we are ready to begin to take our first step into the Hebrew, and that is, my recommendation for the first step is to identify phrases. So what we want to do is make sure that as we're working through this, we break it down into something that, let's just say, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it with one bite at a time, right? And it's the same approach with Hebrew. We can overwhelm ourselves looking at everything, but let's break it down into phrases. Now, there's a couple ways in which you can get phrases. One way is to use the accents, and that's why these accents are so important. So let's do this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the sentence diagramming tool, and we're going to insert a passage. So let's go insert passage. Let's put in Genesis 2, 1 through 3. We're just going to do 3 passages. Choose your preferred Bible. I'm going to do the NASB. So I'm going to type in NASB at the top, and then choose text flow diagram. Text flow diagram. Notice that when I changed the translation, the verse popped out. It's really annoying that it does that, so we may have to put it in again. Genesis 2, 1 through 3. So now we've got a 1 through 3, New American Standard text flow diagram. Stay with the manuscript is fine. And then do insert. Now the first thing I do when it pops in is I delete the text reference, and I go up and I relabel the diagram to Genesis 2, 1 through 3. That just gives me more space. Now, when you insert English text, you'll notice you got this bar on the left. That allows me to move it around. I'll move it to the top left. And then, if you scroll over to the right, I can resize the text. All right, that'll give me a little more room to work with. It's a little tricky with this small screen, so let me open this up a little bit. And there we go. All right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to identify the phrase, and then we're going to actually phrase it in the English below. Now, you could do this in Word. I just want to take advantage of the sentence diagramming tool since we have that here. Floating the panel is a good option. If you right-click, that allows you to get more access to. I'm going to go back and dock it as well. How do we identify phrases in the original language? This is so cool. You're going to love this. So I'm going to bring my personal book in so you can first see it visually. There are 2 disjunctive accents. The first one, I got the word here, it's called athnak. The second one is called the zakef katan. Forgive me if my Hebrew isn't totally precise. The athnak is this caret that's underneath these 3 S's, okay, in the Samic there. And it's a little caret there. That's the athnak. In the English, you'll sometimes see a semicolon or a comma in the English text. So there is a crossover into our English, but this is what we're going to be looking for, that caret. The zakef katan is the colon. It's a colon and it's above the word. Now, when I break down the text, this is the first step I make. So let's go ahead and just do this with Genesis 2:1. And let's see if we can find the first athnak or zakef katan. And so let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, first line. Then we got the second line. Here we go. And there it is, right there. So that's the first one. If we go down further, there's the second one right there. So let me circle that. There it is. Now, I'm going to go back to the BHW and just see if it's any different, just to make sure it's the same. There it is. There's the first one. And if we go down, we can see there's the third one, another one. And good. Here's the athnak. So there's one right there. And then if we go to verse 3, we will see another one. There we go. There's the athnak. So these represent divisions in the text. Now, we'll come back to this in a minute, show how to use it. Now, the next 2 accents you want to look for as well are these. And let me zoom in a little bit if I can. That might make it a little bit easier. We have this one, okay, that looks like kind of like a comma, but going the other direction, the tifha. And then we have the sagolta, which is this one, looks like the 3 dots. And those also are divisions as well. So let's go to the Hebrew text and find a couple of those guys. So we'll go back to Genesis 2:1. All right, and we're going to circle it. And again, we're going to look for that one that goes backwards, and there it is. There's another one. There's one more. It's called the riva, and it's a kind of a diamond that's above the word. Let me show you where that is. Okay, so let me scroll down. And it's usually pretty obvious because you can see a dot, but the riva is like a little diamond above the text. So you can see it right there, inside there. In fact, that's a good example because you can see the difference between the dot and the diamond. Now, why am I going through all this rigmarole? You want to learn Hebrew? Got to learn a few of these symbols. Now, why are these important? Well, let me show you how to use them. So, What you do is, depending if you have the smart text feature on, is I just left click on the Hebrew text and I start dragging until I see one of those. Now, if all the words suddenly start dragging, that means you have the smart text feature in Logos 5 turned on. Let me show you what I mean. Let me go to Tools, Program Settings, and there's this feature called Smart Text Selection. And when it's on yes, it starts grabbing whole words. Well, when you do this, you really don't want that. So you hold down the Alt button, and that turns off the smart text. Now you can start dragging to the left, letter by letter. So what I'm looking for is one of these accents to appear. And there's the first one right there. Now, the way this works is you locate the accent and then you stop. And that is the phrase. Now, where do you stop? The accents are always on a word, so the break would be right here between the two words. So our first phrase is up to here. It's all of this. So if we go back and just highlight that again, and we look over to our English, we see the first phrase, and look, there's a comma to help us. Thus, all the heavens and the earth were completed. So we could make that our first phrase. So I'm going to go to the sentence diagramming tool, and I am going to drag that down. So that tells me we have a first phrase. Now, it's not to say we couldn't break it down further, but this is to help you study. This is a group of words that we have to study together. It's a unit. It's an idea. Now, Nathan asked the question, would this be using a syntax?